want to talk to you today about owning the raw material of your story. Everybody has a story. Everybody's stories matter. Everybody's story is broken. We don't get to have the stories that we want. And every story can be healed only when it's integrated into that larger story, the story of God. We all start our story with raw material, your body, your genes, your IQ, your family of origin. A real big part of the story is accepting God. This is the raw material that I have been given, and I will acknowledge it, and I will be grateful for it. That's what I want us to practice today. I think you can see behind me there is a bunch of sheep. One of the Psalms that I often start out in the morning with is the very first one I memorized when I was a little kid, Psalm 100, and part of it goes, "For we are his people, the sheep of his pasture." The old King James translation says, "For the Lord, he is God. It is he that has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture." And I was thinking how dumb sheep are. And I stood by this fence. You can't see it. And I backed up a little bit. It's an electric fence. I got shocked so bad. I almost died making this stupid video. So I hope you appreciate it. But it just goes to show sheep are not the only dumb people. Very often in our life, we have a hard time getting on with our stories and writing them together with God because I don't want my origins. I don't want my body. I don't want my temperament. I don't know how you feel about yours. A friend of mine, Mark Nelson, he has been on the show with me, sent me not long ago. This is a actual true letter, a letter from the mother of the man who would become a famous philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer. Now imagine getting this letter from your mom. I think Schopenhauer was, something like 18 years old. "You are not an evil human. You are not without intellect and education. You have everything that could make you a credit to human society. Moreover, I'm acquainted with your heart and know that few are better. But you are nevertheless irritating and unbearable, and I consider it most difficult to live with you. All of your good qualities become obscured by your super cleverness and are made useless to the world merely because of your rage at wanting to know everything better than others, of wanting to improve and master what you cannot command. With this you embitter the people around you, since no one wants to be improved or enlightened in such a forceful way, least of all by such an insignificant individual as you still are. No one can tolerate being reproved by you, who also still show so many weaknesses yourself, least of all in your adverse manner, which in oracular tones proclaims this is so-and-so without ever supposing an objection. If only you were less like you would only be ridiculous. But thus as you are highly annoying." Love, Mom. Can you imagine getting that from your mom? Now, by way of contrast, we begin to consider today another life, also somebody who, like Schopenhauer, was generally the smartest guy in the room, but wrote a very different story with his raw material, and his name was St. Augustine. He was born about 354 in Carthage. Interestingly enough, generally regarded outside of the Apostle Paul as the most influential thinker in the history of the Christian church, is from Africa, a place that at times in the church in the West was not regarded as a cradle of intellect, but that's where our greatest thinker came from. And for many, many years was very far from God. His mom, her name was Monica, believed in him deeply and prayed for him to become a follower of Jesus. And we'll look more later on at how that actually happened in his life. What I want to start with right now are some words from his spiritual memoir, The Confessions of Augustine. He was a prolific writer, an absolutely brilliant mind. His confessions are thought in many ways to have been kind of the first autobiography in the Western world. There had never been someone before who examined their life with such unsparing honesty. And Augustine was quite open about where he would look before he was willing to look for God to get satisfaction that he wanted, and talks quite a lot in very general ways about sexual sin in his life. He actually pairs that up with another sin that looks quite insignificant, stealing pears from a tree, and doing that not because he was particularly hungry, just because they were forbidden. There is something inside of us, and this is part of what he is exploring in the Confessions, that is often ways that we can't even make sense of. It is what is sometimes talked about as the folly of sin. And here's what he quite famously writes at the very beginning of his memoir: "Our hearts are restless until they find rest in you." Lisher goes on. The Latin word that Augustine uses here is inquietum, translated by several words that begin disturbed, disquieted, disoriented. So I want to invite you now, as you think about your raw material, your body, your genetic inheritance, your parents, your family of origin, your early education, your opportunities or lack thereof, your looks, what's the raw material that God is calling you to accept? Say, this is who I am. This is part of my story that will always be. Now, we're able to change things, and we're called to seek to change with God's help that which we're able to change, but then to accept deeply that which we cannot change. Lisher goes on. We're still on page 1 in the Confessions. Restlessness is an odd place to begin an autobiography. The word leaves a vapor trail of indecision, false starts, and uneasiness throughout the Confessions. It plays realistically in our lives too. He says most religious autobiographies begin from a much more serious condition, with a much more dramatic problem than that, some kind of addiction or blindness, deafness, hard-heartedness, death. We're certainly aware of restlessness, but we probably would not recognize restless as a theological word or place it in a theological category. The computer has stoked our restlessness by making us impatient of 10-second delays in gathering information that less than a generation ago would have taken hours in a library. The virtual availability of everything reduces life to the restless sorting and discarding of options. We walk through life, it is a profound observation, suffering from, in our day we'll talk about the restless leg syndrome. We suffer from restless heart syndrome. And this is what Augustine diagnoses at the very beginning of his Confessions. Now, I've heard that talked about sometimes as a problem that it is or is supposed to go away when you become a Christian. Somebody said it's like, gets described like you have this round hole inside you, and if you try to fill it with a square peg of career success or sex or money, then it won't work. But if you become a Christian, then you get a round peg for the round hole, and that's not what Augustine is saying. Augustine wrestled with restlessness for the rest of his life. Restlessness is a universal human condition that's part of our story. Again, Hebrews chapter 11, that account of the great ones who went before us and their stories, they did not receive what was promised. See, our restlessness is that sense we all have that I was made for something, that as long as I am alive in this broken world with my broken story will never be fully satisfied. So I am invited to allow that restlessness to lead me back to God. God, could I rest in you? Could I, instead of always looking for some gift from you, this desire, this answer to prayer, could I find my rest in you? Could I accept, for all my inadequacies and all my shortcomings today, this is me. You have made me, not me myself. Could I even be thankful? God, you have blessed me right here in this place. My story, my hurts, my wounds. Thank you, God. Thank you for that. Can you take a moment to thank God right now? That looks like an overweight Baxter right there behind me. Thank you, God, for the creatures in my life. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story mattered. Every story can ultimately be redeemed when it is placed into the great story of the one that we trust.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future teachings from John Ortberg here at Become New. My name's Tim, and I'm a part of the team here. This series is all about stories. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story matters. And we want to know about your story, whether it's a story of coming to faith or a story of spiritual growth. Whatever it is, we're here for you. You can email that to us at connect@becomenew.com, or you can text it to us. You can also sign up for daily reminders whenever we drop a new video via text by texting the word BECOME to the number 855-888-0444. You can also send us prayer requests there. There's a team of us that meet to pray each weekday for viewers just like yourself. If you'd like to receive the emails that go along with each video, be sure to check that out at becomenew.com/subscribe. More than a video to watch, this is really a community to belong to, and we're so glad that you're a part of it. We'll catch you next time.